Hello friends, welcome into the Cowboys Report presented by the Guild. I am Tom Downey. Follow me on Twitter at WhatGoingDowney for more Cowboys coverage. And naturally, we start things off today with David Irving's suspension because, well, once again, he has found himself in trouble. So Irving was suspended by the NFL for 4 games on Friday. Irving has already appealed, and he was denied. So the Cowboys and Irving have known this was going to be an issue for at least a couple of weeks now. Again, what happened was not that David Irving failed a drug test. It was that David Irving didn't take any of the drug tests, and Internet Rapport said it was multiple ones that he had missed. It's just another incident in what has been a very troubling and difficult offseason for David Irving. Was reportedly overweight during OTAs and minicamp as well. Had to just run on the side there, even pooped a couple times during the final minicamps. Had to deal with false domestic violence accusations this offseason. And now the Cowboys are in a bit of a rough shape at defensive tackle. David Irving is their top guy, an immensely talented player. When he's on the field, of course, there's always been something else going on with Irving. Last year, he was suspended for 4 games for PEDs. Then he had the concussion. Now he's suspended again for 4 games to start this year. Malik Collins is banged up, and the Cowboys' defensive depth chart overall right now, it's pretty bad. It's a very thin unit overall. And for David Irving, it just seems like he doesn't get it yet. And I get that David Irving has had a lot going on this offseason, and you feel for him as a person. And David Irving has made it clear that, you know, he wants to be there for his daughter. He wants to be a better father, and you absolutely respect that. Here, of course, today is Father's Day, so you get that for David Irving. But it's not an either-or situation for Irving. And he was upset that the Cowboys said he was overweight. He blamed the media for not accurately reporting why he had everything going on this offseason. And at the same time for David Irving, if you want to be the best father for your daughter, the best thing you can do is to be the best damn football player too. So I don't think that David Irving gets it yet, and I hope that at some point soon he figures it out because there is so much talent there. David Irving could be one of the best defensive players in the entire NFL if he ever puts it all together for multiple seasons in a row. But with yet another suspension, it's tough to trust him at all. And that brings us to our next news item here. Shawn Lee, who this is very much, I think, out of character for Lee. He went out and criticized David Irving. We'll get to that audio here in just a second, but Lee criticized Irving before the suspension news even came out. Said he has got to show the commitment, has to be at the facility more often. It's very rare for Shawn Lee to publicly comment about a teammate in a negative fashion, but here's what Shawn Lee said about David Irving.
Shared sacrifice, all of us working together as a team is a big deal for all of us. He needs to be here on a more consistent basis. He needs to be working more with us.
Is that something that you personally have told him, help him understand shared sacrifice? For
yeah, well, you know, I've talked with him, and I think we've expressed it with him, and he needs to get here. He needs to be here working with us. He can be a huge part of this team if he wants to be, but he's got to show that commitment.
Was it frustrating that he was sporadic early on this offseason?
Well, we want to have everybody here. I mean, I know it's voluntary, but we want guys here working together and improving as a team.
So Shawn Lee really did not hold back about his comments with David Irving. And one more note here on David Irving before we get into a little reaction poll here for you guys, or Wayne, excuse me. The day before Irving was announced, the suspension was announced for Irving, he said, "I have a lot of issues I've been dealing with. Just know it's behind me. By the time the season starts, I won't be dealing with any of this BS anymore." And yet, David Irving the very next day gets suspended by the NFL. So I want to know from you guys watching, how do you feel about David Irving's suspension? Are you still frustrated? Are you disappointed? Are you angry? Or are you just tired of it overall? I saw quite a few comments. It's another year where a Cowboys starter is going to be suspended on defense. At a certain point, it does get a little bothersome. So let me know, folks, in the comments section. All right, folks, now, once again, a reminder that today's show is brought to you by The Guild. Visit stayguild.com for 15% off your next stay. Kind of like a luxury Airbnb. Visit stayguild.com for 15% off your next stay. One more news item here for you. That's that Xavier Woods is ignoring all of the Earl Thomas trade talk. Exactly what you want to hear from a promising young safety in Xavier Woods. He said that, yeah, he's heard about the Earl Thomas trade talk, but Xavier Woods said in the end, quote, "I just block it out. I've learned this is a business at the end of the day. The job is based on yourself. You have to be irreplaceable. It's all on you." And I think that's the perfect mindset for Xavier Woods. He wants to give Dallas a reason to not even want Earl Thomas. And if he wows at training camp and he wows in the preseason, that I think will help calm down the Earl Thomas trade talk. But folks, let me know in the comments section, should the Cowboys trade Earl Thomas? Give me a heart for a yes and a wow face for a no. Let's take it now to some Cowboys rumors. If it's your first time watching the show here, here's what all the stars mean. 0 stars, number of fights, so no. 1 against the net, it's fake news, don't buy it. 1 star is a small shred of truth. 2 stars means people are talking firmly in that rumor category. 3 stars means pretty likely, not quite set in stone, but it's getting that way. And 4 stars means that Zeke's eaten, it's a fact. And speaking of Zeke eaten, is he going to have a massive workload this year for the Dallas Cowboys? And I'm going to give it 4 stars because Zeke is going to eat this year. It is going to be a Valhalla-esque feast because Elliott is going to have a massive workload. And Gary Brown said he asked Zeke to be in the best shape of his life because he is going to get a lot of carries, especially early on. And Zeke's on board with that. Now, the Cowboys offense will once again focus almost exclusively on getting Zeke the ball early and often. He is going to get a ridiculous amount of carries. Had he played all 16 games last year, he was going to be on pace to put up 387 carries plus quite a few receptions. He would have easily passed 400 yards, and I think, or touches, excuse me, 400 touches. I think he'll do the same thing this year. Elliott is going to be the focal point of the entire Cowboys offense. So with that in mind, could Ezekiel Elliott win MVP this year for the NFL? I'm only going to give it 2 stars. I like the idea, but there are some things that I think make it unlikely. Namely, that the MVP almost always goes to a player on a top team. Maybe the Cowboys are that, maybe they're not. And oh, by the way, we've seen it year in and year out. The quarterback always gets a ton of hype. Now, Zeke has just 50-1 odds. I like those odds. They're way too low. That's worthwhile investment there, but I don't know if he'll actually win the MVP. But I do want to know from you guys, who will be the Cowboys MVP this year? Will it be Dak Prescott? Will it be the entire offensive line? Will it be Zeke? Will it be a defensive player like Shawn Lee? Let me know in the comments section. And subscribe to our brand new Cowboys Report YouTube channel at chatsports.com/CowboysTV. All of our Cowboys coverage all in one spot. We'll stick on the offense now for our next rumor, are Michael Gallup and Dak Prescott meshing early. I'm going to give it 3 stars, not quite set in stone, but it certainly seemed that way at minicamp and at OTAs. And Gallup showed the ability to separate against defensive backs. That is a big check mark for me. A big thing Dak needs is a receiver that gets open on his own. Other players that kind of stood out a little bit more than everyone else. Lance Lenoir and Blake Jarwin plus Gallup are all seeming to be on a pretty similar page. It's a promising sign for those guys as they try to make a bigger impact this year. Now, Allen Hurns, of course, Beasley, Gallup are roster locks. T-Will, we'll see about that suspension. If it happens, then maybe he's gone. If not, I don't know. Deontay Thompson's going to play a big role potentially as a deep threat, same with Ced Wilson, Tavon Austin, Noah Brown, Lance Lenoir. It's a lot of guys competing for, I think, at most 7 spots among those guys we just discussed. But, folks, let me know who will be the Cowboys' #1 wide receiver this year. One went on the quarterbacks and Dak and the wide receivers as well. They all took on a nice little trip together away. I like that idea. Get that chemistry going. On-field and off-field chemistry does matter for Dak Prescott and these wide receivers. But get your votes in, and we'll talk about the possibility of the Cowboys cutting David Irving in just a second. But first, a word from our sponsor, The Guild. So will the Cowboys not cut David Irving? I'm going to go ahead and give this one 4 stars. So as people from the Cowboys' own website, so is Dallas Morning News, it just doesn't seem very likely. And I get why some of you would like to see David Irving cut. But from the Cowboys' perspective, they're going to give Irving another chance. And they're not going to cut him, A, because he's not that expensive. He's very young, and he's a good football player. We know the reality of the NFL is you get a lot of extra chances if you're a talented player, and that's what David Irving is. Look at the defensive tackle depth chart here. Without David Irving, it's not very good. Malik Collins, now you're banking a lot on Jihad Ward. I like Dayton Jones. I like Brian Price, but those are not key players you want getting all of your snaps at DT. The Cowboys will definitely miss David Irving to start the season. So they're going to give him one more chance. And then maybe after this year, they say, you know what, David, we're done with you. Go find somewhere else to play. But let me know what you think the Cowboys should do with David Irving. Give me a heart if you want to keep him, a like if you want to wait and see for now, make a decision later on down the road, maybe before the regular season, a laughing face for a trade, and a wow face for a cut. 2 rumors left then. Next up, Jamil Showers. Is he going to make the roster? I'll give this one 2 stars because the Cowboys keep trying to make Showers happen, and I'm not really sure why. The Cowboys have always liked Showers. I think special teams is a key reason why, but the Dallas Morning News says, hey, he could be a surprise player to make the roster, and I think it's mainly because the Cowboys are really thin at safety. I like their top 3 guys in Jeff Heath, and obviously I like Xavier Woods and Kevon Frazier, but then it's Cam Kelly, an undrafted free agent, and then it's Jamil Showers as well. It's a very thin unit for the Cowboys. If they're going to go 4 and Cam Kelly does not wow in the preseason, it might end up being Jamil Showers. It's not the route I would go, but he's got a real chance to make this roster this year after hanging out on the practice squad for the last 2 seasons. One final rumor then is Leighton Vander Esch, the biggest minicamp loser for the Cowboys. I'm only going to give it the 1 star. I get why Bleacher Report said this was the case, and he is definitely a loser for the Cowboys because he's been hurt with an ankle injury, and that's a big blow for him and for the Cowboys trying to get him up to speed. But the biggest loser is David Irving, right? Like, that shouldn't really be much of a debate there. Irving is your biggest loser because of the suspension, because of being overweight, not quite being up to par with what the Cowboys expect from him. So, Vander Esch is a loser, but he's not the biggest loser. All right, folks, I'm Tom Downey. Follow me on Twitter at WhatGoingDowney for more Cowboys coverage. Now, I know I had promised you guys the Xavier Woods film study. We're going to push that back until Tuesday because David Irving got suspended. I think the Cowboys need some more detail. So we're going to take a look now at a couple different defensive tackles the Cowboys could still sign who could end up being replacement players, at least early on, for David Irving. Now, again, a 4-game suspension for Irving, missing drug tests, a rough offseason overall for David Irving. But now you look at this Cowboys defensive tackle depth chart, I'm not a big fan of it. You got Irving suspended. Malik Collins, who I've always liked, is hurt and is almost always hurt early in the year. You're banking a lot now on Jihad Ward. Brian Price is a replacement level 1 technique. Dayton Jones is a guy that I like as well. But if you're potentially without those first 2 guys early in the year, that's 3 players you need more. And maybe it's a Richard Ash. Maybe it's an Antoine Woods. Maybe it's Daniel Ross or Lewis. The Cowboys are going to move to fullback. So I don't think they trust him all that much at DT. So with that in mind, what should the Cowboys do at defensive tackle? Give me a heart if you want to make a trade, a like for just a wait and see for now, a laughing face for sign somebody, and then a wow face just to do absolutely nothing. So if we're looking at 5 guys the Cowboys could sign, here were 5 others that just missed the cut for me. Cedric Thornton, former Cowboy. Dallas doesn't seem to like him all that much, so I don't think he's going to be the guy. Pat Sims, a little bit washed up. Silver Salaga is a replacement level nose guard. He was not that good. I don't think the Cowboys need him all that much. I would rather just stick with Richard Ash at that point. Alan Branch used to be a great player, but he's not quite the same guy he once was. And then Jordan Hill just missed the list as well. So first up is Tyron Walker, who spent some time last year with the Los Angeles Rams. Before this, he had a tryout with the Saints and the Jets. In the end, he was not signed. Now, he doesn't offer much against the pass with just 4.5 career sacks. But if you're just looking for a body to help be a rotational player, I think Tyron Walker could be that type of guy. Of course, the Rams didn't really need to bring back Walker once they signed Ndamukong Suh. So I think he'll get signed at some point. Maybe not by the Cowboys, but he's a good enough player to hang around at the bottom of a defensive tackle depth chart in the NFL. Next up is Ricky Jean-Francois, who played for the Packers and the Patriots last year. He is a veteran player, but doesn't bring much in the passing game. That's why these type of players have not been signed yet, because the Cowboys just don't value players who can't get to the quarterback. Frankly, not much the NFL does anyway. And the Cowboys are trying to find a pass rusher. I don't know if there's a guy that fits that mold. It's probably not Ricky Jean-Francois. Next up is Quentin Dial. Now, he could be an intriguing scheme fit because he's spent the past few years as a 3-4 defensive end. No sacks since 2015. That's a big red flag for the Cowboys. But, look, folks, we're in June. You're not going to find good defensive tackles for the most part that are still unsigned. 2 guys left, and these are the 2 guys that I would actually like to see Dallas sign. First up is Carl Klug. Now, Carl, 7 sacks in his rookie year, and it was like, oh man, this kid could be really good. Hasn't quite put up the same numbers since then, 1.5 the last 2 years, but he has been mostly a rotational defensive player, mostly coming in sub packages. I think he could be a good fit for the Cowboys as a 4-3 defensive tackle. Kind of played more of a defensive end, defensive tackle hybrid role for the Titans, who ran some 3-4 base stuff, came in nickel and sub packages. I think he could be a guy that if you just want to give 15 snaps a game to, and you're trying to spread it out across your entire defensive tackle depth chart, I think Carl makes quite a bit of sense there. Not going to be a 7-sack guy again, but he does bring you enough talent. I think if he were signed, he would actually make the roster and may even make a bit of an impact for the Cowboys. But the number 1 guy, and it's not even close, is Jonathan Hankins. Just go sign the guy. I've been pounding the table for Hankins for several weeks now, since reality the Colts cut him and the Cowboys missed out on Terrell McClain. Now the Cowboys, for some, I'm just going to call it stupid reason, don't think Hankins is good enough to play, and they think he is a one technique, doesn't fit the scheme, doesn't bring enough pass rush ability, which I disagree with. He had 2 sacks last year. No, it's not a lot. He's shown flashes in the past. I know he's not going to be a David Irving. He's not going to be an Aaron Donald. But the Cowboys need more bodies at defensive tackle, and they need talented ones. Hankins signs. I think he's the best player in week 1 at DT. I think he'd be better than Malik Collins, even though he wouldn't be as disruptive. So bring in Hankins. Let him be your one technique. Give him the snaps. Maybe he's a little bit expensive. It's a worthwhile addition. The Cowboys, I think, need to sign somebody, and it needs to be Hankins. Maybe he's not a scheme fit per se, but he's definitely a talent fit. The Cowboys can find a way to get him on the roster and have him play well. I just think it makes too much sense for the Cowboys not to do it, but they have shown little interest and, frankly, no interest thus far. So Hankins is there at number 1, Carl Klug at number 2, Quentin Dial, Ricky Jean, Francois, and then Tyron Walker. Look, we're in June. You're not going to find a bunch of good defensive tackles, but Hankins is still out there. I'd go sign him in a heartbeat. So, folks, let me know if you want any of those guys. You can throw out other names in the comment section as well. I am all aboard the sign Jonathan Hankins train, but I don't think it's actually going to happen because for whatever reason, the Cowboys just don't seem to value Hankins in the way that, frankly, I think they should. A big thank you to Stay Guild for sponsoring today's show. Visit stayguild.com for 15% off your next stay. Think of it as kind of like a luxury Airbnb. And again, we'll do a mailbag in the near future, so get your questions in the comment section. Until then, I am Tom Downey. Follow me on Twitter at WhatGoingDowney, and we'll see you guys next time.